Mr. President, thank you for sitting down with us. This experiment of Joe Biden as president, it's only been 4 months, and in the short 4 months, America is enduring numerous crises, both abroad and at home. It seems our country is deteriorating very fast, even faster than I would have thought. Your reaction?
Well, it's pretty obvious. You look at what's going to happen is even scarier. The border is a disaster. We had the strongest border we've ever had, and within a month, it became the weakest, and now you have tens of thousands of people flowing into our countries, and many are criminals, frankly, released from jails. In numerous countries, we have people coming in from the Middle East. We have people coming in from everywhere. You go to the airport, you have to show how you're doing. You come through the southern border and you just walk in. We had the strongest southern border ever, and it's very sad to see. The wall was so important. You know, we built almost 500 miles of wall. And within a month, it would have been finished, and they ended it. Right. Took 2.5 years to get the approvals to do it. I had to go to court. I had to do everything. We got the approvals. And so you have open spots, and it's ridiculous. I hear they're going to close them up, but now it's a big deal with the contractors because those transactions were made. It was all complete. But you look at so many other things. It's very sad to see what's happening. Inflation is going to be a big problem. It's going to drive a lot of things up and down, whichever is worse, because bad things happen with inflation. But you see that happening all over. Lumber, the cost of gasoline. You look at gasoline, what's happened. I was at $2.87 was high. That's when I got involved. Right. And it was in the threes and a little bit in the fours. And then came in and I had it under $2. I had it for $1.87 actually. And when I left, it was under $2 substantially. And now it's going to be hitting $4. And that's bigger than any tax increase you can think of, especially for middle income people. So a lot of bad things are happening. I don't think we're respected in the world right now. There were never moves on Taiwan by China. Now you have bombers flying over Taiwan. Right. Russia would have never encircled Ukraine like they did. Kim Jong-un was somebody that I had a great relationship with. We weren't going to have any problem with him, in my opinion. And now you look at what's going on there. A lot of bad things are happening.
I want to ask you about the Wuhan lab. New reporting this week from the Wall Street Journal about workers there being so sickened as far back as November of 2019 that they were hospitalized. The corporate media, now the shameful, biased corporate media, is starting to come around to recognize that perhaps that is the origin, in fact, of the China virus. Even Dr. Fauci is changing his tune. Do you feel vindicated?
Well, I said it right at the beginning. That's where it came from. I think it was obvious to smart people that's where it came from. I have no doubt about it. I had no doubt about it. I was criticized by the press because China has a lot of people taken care of. They took care of Hunter. They took care of Joe. They took care of everybody, didn't they? And people didn't want to say China. Usually they blame it on Russia. It's always Russia, Russia, Russia. But I said right at the beginning, it came out of Wuhan. And that's where all the deaths were. Also, by the way, when we first heard about this, there were body bags, dead people laying all over Wuhan province. And that's where it happened to be located. So to me, it was very obvious. I said it very strongly, and I was criticized, and now people are agreeing with me, so that's okay.
When it comes to China, the more we learn about their malfeasance regarding the virus and what they knew very early on and lied to the world about, is it important for the United States that we make them pay a real penalty for what they did?
Well, we have to be stronger than what we are right now. Right now, what's going on is just very unfortunate. I put massive taxes and tariffs on China. We took in tens of billions of dollars, and they're talking about taking them off. You look at the military they're building, it's going to be, it's so big what they're doing, and they're doing it with money they take out of the United States. And what I did was incredible with China. We really set them back. And I don't want to set them back. I want to let everybody do well. Our farmers did well. The deal I made with China was incredible for our farmers and for manufacturers and everybody else. And you see that the farmers are doing better than they've ever done because of what's being bought from China. But when the China virus came or COVID came, whatever you want to call it, there are a lot of different names. I won't go into all of them. But when they came, Steve, it was a whole different ballgame. When that horrible virus flew over the oceans or came however it came in. Remember, I closed our country to China way early, much earlier than Pelosi or anybody wanted it to happen, including Dr. Fauci, who I always got along with pretty well, but I usually did the opposite of what he wanted. He said the vaccine would take 3 to 5 years and probably wouldn't even happen.
Right.
And I got it done in less than 9 months. I think that's one of the great achievements. And I think another great achievement, I think the best bet ever made was I bought billions and billions of dollars of vaccine before we knew it worked, before we had it approved, because otherwise we'd be waiting until October of this year. So you probably got vaccinated. Most people did. A lot of people did. A lot of people are going to. And we have some out there that don't want to, and that's their freedom. I mean, that's what it's all about. That's their freedom. I would recommend that they do it, but that's their freedom. We're very proud of what we've done. But if you look at the world, I think this could have been another Spanish flu from 1917, where up to 100 million people died. This was only going to be getting worse. And the vaccine has just made, I see numbers today are that we're doing better than we have now in a year because of the vaccine, because it's stopping this plague from spreading and going further. Other countries are behind us. We were way early. If you remember a very important time when this started, everybody was saying, look at India, how well India is doing. Well, they're not doing well. Look at other countries. They talked about France. They talked about Spain. They talked about different countries. Look how they're doing. Now even Taiwan is being hit very hard. But any country that was doing better than us, they'd use that as an example. We did an incredible job with getting the ventilators and getting the outfits and the goggles and the masks and all of the things you had to do. We did an incredible job, but they'd always say, the fake news, look at India. They used to use India as the biggest because it was a big country, and they were doing fine then, but boy, they've gotten hit harder than anybody ever thought possible. But they'll get better because of the vaccines. The vaccine is the biggest thing that's happened, and second to that would be one of the best bets ever made, and that was the bet of billions and billions, up to $12 billion worth of paraphernalia, but also, for the bottles, we got the injection apparatus, but most importantly, we got the vaccine, and we bought it early because it takes so long to manufacture. So instead of having one now, people would be you'd start the process on October 1st. So that was a great bet. That saved possibly, tens of millions of lives worldwide.
Mr. President, you mentioned gasoline, and the specific statistics are on Election Day, it was $2.20 a gallon national average, according to the Department of Energy. Right now, it's $3.11. That's a massive move incredibly quickly since Election Day. I want to ask you about inflation, though, more broadly, because you did business in the 1970s, the last time the U.S. saw really aggressive inflation. A lot of people, if they're young, have never operated in that kind of environment in America. What does this portend for Americans, this new Biden inflation spike?
Well, it's going to be ugly. When you look at the cost of a house, just the materials for a house, it's up 30 or 40% in the last few months, especially lumber. Lumber, they say you can't even get it. Perhaps they're closing down all their forests for environmental reasons. I disagreed with that. I said, let's buy our lumber from ourselves. So we go to Canada, and they are very good negotiators in Canada. I did the USMCA, which was one of the great achievements because NAFTA was so bad. It was so horrible. The worst trade deal ever made. Although the deals they made with China were pretty bad too, I will tell you that. But the worst trade deal ever made. And I got it done. So we have a great trade deal now. But they close up forests. They don't want to take down any trees. So we end up buying them from other countries. And the lumber's gone through the roof. The lumber, I guess, as much as anything, but everything, steel. You look at what's going on with pricing, and obviously you're going to have inflation. Gasoline is going to stop at $6, $7, I think, based on what I'm seeing. We were energy independent when I left, and right now I would have to say we are no longer energy independent. We're putting windmills all over the place, which cost a fortune, which, by the way, if you're a believer in the carbon footprint and all of the other things, when they make these windmills, which are all made in China and Germany, by the way, they're all made in China, Germany. We don't do them here. They put them together. We put them together here. We don't make them here. What goes into the air when they make them is more than anything that can ever be saved Well, here, if you're a believer in that, okay, some people are and some people aren't, but we have windmills all over the place. They ruin the environment, they kill the birds, and they cost a fortune. We have natural gas, costs us nothing. Actually, nothing. They burn it off. When you're looking at all of those flames on top of the wells, that's natural gas that they burn off, they throw away. And we have it for nothing. Other countries don't have that. We have it for nothing, the richest in the world. And we want to give that away for windmills. You look at some of these beautiful farms where they have windmills all over the place, and you look at these incredible landscapes, and now they're putting them in parts of Massachusetts where a lot of people aren't so happy about it, and has a lot of negative impacts. I'm not a big fan of wind. It's very, very expensive. You see what happened in Texas where they actually froze up on them. Right. Got a little cold and they froze. Now, we have tremendous resources, and solar is going to get better, but it's very expensive right now. Wind has a place, but it's got a much smaller place. What they're doing, you put them in industrial areas maybe, but to put them all over these incredible landscapes of our country, they're destroying our country.
Sure. I think that Texas situation was a wake-up call for a lot of people if it could happen in energy-rich Texas, right?
Well, especially in Texas because they have so much and it's for nothing. I mean, they literally are burning it off. It costs nothing. Somebody was giving me an analogy that natural gas is 1 cent per however they measure it. Wind is 50 cents and 55 cents. Solar is 56 cents. So here we have it for 1 cent, but it's probably almost nothing. Delivery is probably the biggest thing. We have it. It's there. Right. It's a natural byproduct. We have it. Wind is so much more expensive.
Sure.
And remember this, when those windmills, after 10 years, they have to be replaced, and they start to rust and rot, and you go out to Palm Springs, California, and you take a look at those wind farms out there, they look like junkyards. Right. It's really a terrible thing, and somebody led this country. I had it slowed down, but now they're really gearing up to do a lot of wind, and that's not a good thing.
Now, staying on this broad topic of the economy, I want to ask you about big business and specifically big tech, because a lot of these firms, I would say most of these firms, they are globalists and they don't really view themselves as American companies anymore. They abuse American workers. They attack our values. Was it a miss when we had both houses of Congress and you were in the White House? Was it a miss to not more aggressively confront big tech?
Well, Section 230 could have been done. Something could have been done, but something is happening now that's great. Florida, Ron, Texas, what they're doing is incredible. They're putting very, very powerful restrictions on big tech. Now, when you add Florida and you add what Greg Abbott's doing in Texas and the others, and a lot of people together, and you look at other states, big states and small states, doesn't matter. You add them all up, they're not going to be able to function unless they become reasonable. So they're basically doing what the federal government will never do. They will never do it. They're taken care of very nicely, the other side, the Democrats. Some of the people, Marsha Blackburn and Josh Hawley and others, they're really fighting hard, but they're fighting a battle against a group of people that just aren't going to do it. That's the Democrats. So what's happening is the big states are coming out. Florida, Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott in particular, those two governors have done an incredible job. I hear in South Dakota they're doing it. I hear in maybe 8 or 9 different states they're doing it. That'll do it because I don't know how you can, you're not going to lose Florida. They can't lose Florida, Texas, and some of these big states. They're going to have to make changes. So I think they can do what the federal government hasn't done, and it gives people like me and others that have been very illegally treated, it gives us the right to bring major lawsuits. When Facebook went to their so-called Supreme Court, their Supreme Court didn't want anything to do with banning me.
Right.
They went back. They said, what are you doing? What are you doing this to us for? You make the decision, which was pretty amazing when you think of it, considering everybody was handpicked, right? So it's very interesting what's happening. So I greatly respect what some of the governors are doing in some of the states. I think they can solve the problem maybe better than the federal government.
Okay, but regarding the federal response, if the Republicans do retake the Congress, as you're very much working toward in 2022, if you decide to run again and you win in 2024, in a potential, a hypothetical second Trump term, what can be done to counter the power of these oligarchs?
Well, I think what can be done, and very strongly, and when you say oligarchs, it's an interesting term, but I just say big tech, because what they do is illegal.
But they also silenced what should have been the biggest blockbuster story of the entire campaign. You know that. I certainly experienced this from the campaign side. The fact that the Hunter Biden laptop from hell story was completely censored and suppressed by big tech. In my view, that justifies labeling these operators as oligarchs. Is that fair?
Well, a lot of things are fair. Look, that was when we first had silencio. That's when we first had silence with Hunter Biden, because it was very bad for the Democrats. That was a very bad issue, and we'd bring it up. And I have to tell you, the New York Post was incredible. What they've done is incredible. And the abuse they took, it was, I think it's a great newspaper, actually, and a lot of people are relying on it more and more. The New York Post has done an incredible job in that regard, but they took tremendous abuse. But that's when you first saw silence. They silenced a newspaper. It's the oldest newspaper in our country, I believe, and it's a big one.
Right.
But they silenced a newspaper in our country because they were talking about Hunter Biden. And the Senate we held, if I weren't involved in the Senate races, nobody ever says this, I believe it would be 60-40 right now, with the Democrats leading by 10 instead of 50-50. And Mitch McConnell lost 2 seats that he should have had. He kept talking about, we're going to give you $600, they're going to give you $2,000. Who can win a race like that?
Right.
He said, you won't get a penny more to the public. You won't get a penny more. They're voting. And they're saying $2,000, and he's saying $600. He lost those 2 Senate seats, so we have 50-50. I think you would be 60-40 if I weren't endorsing. If you look at Alaska, you look at Iowa, you looked at North Carolina, you look at many, even Lindsey Graham said I helped him so much, and he's done a terrific job. I helped him a lot. And I got Mitch McConnell elected, if you can believe it. He was losing, and he came to me, he wanted help. And I gave him help. And he went up 20 points after I gave him help, and he won his election. But if I didn't get him help, he would have lost absolutely in Kentucky, where I'm very popular. I like them too, by the way.
You've been very tough on Mitch McConnell, I think deservedly so. But wouldn't the same criticisms also apply to Kevin McCarthy?
Different. Kevin has had some bad moments, but he's always come back and done what's right for the country. So it's different. It really is different. He had a couple of bad moments, but it's a very interesting question. Different in that sense, yeah. Much different.
Understood.
And you know what? He's done a good job. Impeachment hoax number 1. We didn't have one negative vote. And for the second, we had not very many. And those people are all being primaried. I think every one of them. Liz Cheney, she's a disaster. I mean, Liz Cheney is being primaried in Wyoming. And Wyoming was my number 1 state. I think I won it by 57 points. Or, no, 47 points, I guess. But I won it by number 1. I think I won it by even more than Alabama and West Virginia, all great states. But I won it by 47 points, Wyoming.
Earlier you mentioned the Biden border crisis. There's new reporting by some journalists in Tennessee that in the middle of the night, plane loads were landing in Chattanooga, Tennessee, full of migrant children. Nobody locally was informed about this. Every town is effectively becoming a border town now because of the Biden border crisis. What is the left, Joe Biden, his allies, what are they really after with this open borders lunacy?
They're going to destroy this country. And forget about the children. They have people coming in from prisons. They have rapists. They have murderers. They have drug dealers. They have human traffickers, and they traffic in women mostly, which nobody likes to say. They traffic in women. They have people, the worst people anywhere in this hemisphere in the world, coming into this country unchecked, being released in our country. And yeah, they are. They're releasing people in Tennessee. That never happened with me.
Right.
That's why Tennessee likes me. But they're releasing them in areas that it's horrible what's happening. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. Again, we had the strongest border in history. We never had a border like this with me. And a big factor was that I built so much of the wall. What a difference it makes, like day and night. Also, I got Mexico to go 28,000 soldiers free of charge, because they didn't want to be tariffed. and because they also happen to have a very good president. I think a very smart president, a very good president. But we had the best border we've ever had. And overnight, like, stay in Mexico. I want to stay in Mexico. Now they stay in the United States and they disappear into our country. We don't even know who these people are. They walk up, they can be murderers, they can be the worst, and they come into our country totally unchecked. It's very, very sad what's happening.
One last question, please, Mr. President, related to that. Joe Biden and his allies in the media, teachers' unions, they seem to be changing the very definition of what it means to be an American citizen. What do you believe we should be teaching our children it means to be an American citizen?
They hate our country and we love our country. We have to love this country. And if somebody doesn't like our country, they shouldn't be here. But you look at the way they're treating Israel now compared to what it was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, Israel was, untouchable. I think nobody's done as much for Israel, frankly, as I have. If you take a look between the embassy in Jerusalem and the capital of Israel and all of the different things that I've done, and the Iran deal, which was such a disaster. And Golan Heights was a big deal. Everyone, for 52 years, they were trying to get Golan Heights. I got it done. But they've been a great ally. And really, when you look at the way they're being treated right now, it's not even believable by Democrats. It's not believable. We have to love our country, and you would almost think that the people that are allowing our country to be destroyed do not love our country.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.